My name is Camille Ward. I'm 34 years old. At my dad's retirement barbecue, I thought I was finally going to stop feeling like the family disappointment. I'd spent 2 months planning it, booked the caterer, argued with the bakery about the custom cake, made a spreadsheet for food, chairs, and head count like it was a work project instead of a backyard party. The banner over the porch read, "Happy Retirement, Frank. 35 years of dedication." But really it could have said, "Last chance for him to pretend he loves his daughter." I hadn't been in that backyard since Christmas. That night, Dad called my husband Dave a leech, loud enough for everyone to hear. We left before dessert, my mother trailing after us with, "You know how he is? Don't be so sensitive," like that made it better. But still I tried again. I always try. The folding tables were set up under sagging string lights, half of them flickering like they were nervous. A tray of half-melted potato salad sweated in the heat. My cousins circled the drinks cooler gossiping. My Aunt Tricia hovered like a vulture looking for something to post about on Facebook later. And there he was, my dad, retiring after 35 years at a company he never stopped complaining about, standing near the grill like a king at the edge of his domain. Same gold ring, same ironed polo shirt, same look of permanent disapproval. I held the box tight in my hand, fingers damp. $12,000. A Rolex I'd been saving for since my last promotion at the firm. Not because he deserved it, because I needed to believe there was still a door I hadn't tried, a gesture big enough to crack his concrete opinion of me. Dave squeezed my shoulder as I passed him. He'd been sanding the frame for the crib we were building in our garage that morning, sawdust still under his nails when we left. He'd told me, gently, that I didn't need to do this. "I know," I'd said, "but I need to know I tried." Now, the music faded into background buzz as I walked across the yard. Conversations dipped. My mother spotted me and brightened with that hostess smile she uses when company is watching. "Frank," she called, tapping his arm. "She's got something for you." Everyone turned. I felt every eye on the small black box in my hands. I took a breath and held it out. "Congratulations, Dad," I said, "for all the time you gave us." He took the box with that same half-bored, half-amused expression he always had when I spoke, like he was humoring a child. He flipped the lid open without ceremony. The Rolex caught the late afternoon light for half a second. Brushed steel, classic face, the engraving inside the band. "For the time you gave us. Camille." He didn't read it. He didn't pick it up. He looked at it the way you look at something cheap on a clearance rack. Then he smirked. "Trying to prove something," he said. "You're still my disappointment." The words didn't hit like a slap. They hit like a confirmation of something I'd known for years, but kept hoping I'd misheard. My mom let out this high-pitched laugh like he'd made a harmless joke. "Oh, Frank," she giggled, shaking her head. The yard went quiet beneath her laugh. Someone shifted. A cousin coughed. Aunt Tricia tilted her head, already devouring the moment. I stared at my father. He still hadn't touched the watch. That smirk stayed on his face. Satisfied, like he was enjoying the awkwardness. Like I was 8 again, holding up an art project he couldn't wait to throw away. Something in me went very, very still. Without saying a word, I reached forward, wrapped my hand around the box, and slid it out of his fingers. His smirk faltered, just a fraction. I turned around. Behind me I heard someone whisper, "Wait, is she serious?" Then my mother's voice, sharp and shrill, cutting through the silence. "Don't you dare!" I didn't even flinch. I walked past my cousins, the ones who call me up tight behind my back and still text me when their rent is short, past the folding table with the sweating potato salad and the fondant briefcase cake, past the banner praising him for 35 years of dedication when I couldn't remember a single time he showed up for a school play. I pushed open the side gate, stepped out into the street, got in my car, and drove away. I didn't cry, not in the car, not when the house shrank in the rearview mirror. I didn't feel angry either. Just done. By the time I pulled into my driveway, the sky was smearing into evening. Dave was on the porch, sanding the crib frame again, the smell of cut wood drifting in the air. He looked up as I stepped out, eyes moving from my face to the box in my hand. He didn't say what happened. He just asked, "Coffee or whiskey?" "Both," I said. He poured both. We sat at the kitchen table, the Rolex box between us, like an accusation. I told him everything. Dad's smirk, the line, Mom's laugh, the silence. How I'd taken the watch back. Dave listened, jaw tightening just slightly. "I knew you shouldn't have done it," he said finally, "but I also knew you had to." He reached for my hand, thumb brushing my knuckles. "I'm proud of you, you know." I almost laughed at how foreign the sentence felt. Later, I fell asleep earlier than I had in months. Not the heavy sleep of someone who's relaxed, but the collapse of someone whose body has been clenching for years and finally let go, just a little. At 6:12 a.m., my phone buzzed so hard it knocked itself off the nightstand. 12 missed calls, 3 from Mom, 5 from Dad, 4 from Aunt Tricia, who never gets involved unless there's drama she can spin into a tragic Facebook post about family loyalty. Then my screen lit up with a new call. Grandpa. My dad's father doesn't call unless it's serious, I answered, hard in my throat. Camille, he said, voice rough with age and irritation. What's going on over there? Your mother says you stole the watch and took the car, the one they use. It took me a second to understand. The car? I repeated. The newer one, he said. She says you took the key, that you're threatening them with it. I frowned and walked into the kitchen, the house still dim, Dave asleep down the hall. Then I remembered. At the barbecue, before all of it, Mom had asked me to grab her phone charger from her purse. I dug around in the chaos of receipts and lipsticks, grabbed the charger, and my fingers must have closed around the spare car key on the ring. Her car, the one I'd co-signed for when Dad's credit cards were maxed and his old Toyota finally died. The one they swore they'd handle the payments on, just need a little help this month. 10 months in a row. The loan, the insurance, the registration, all in my name. I'd tossed the key into my own purse and forgotten about it. I opened the drawer by the fridge. There it was. The key, cold in my hand. Grandpa was still talking. I told them there's more to this than they're saying. They're making it sound like you robbed them blind. I looked at the key, then at the Rolex box still on the counter where I'd left it last night. Grandpa, I said slowly, whose name do you think that car is in? There was a pause on the line. Yours, he said. It wasn't a question. Whose name do you think that watch charged to? I added. Another pause. Ours? He guessed. Mine, I said. All of it. Every payment, every bill, every just this month that turned into almost a year. The kitchen light felt harsh. The house felt too small. My life felt suddenly very clear. Camille, Grandpa said quietly, you don't owe them your whole life. I know, I said, and for the first time I actually believed it. We hung up. I stood there in the kitchen, holding the key in one hand and the Rolex in the other. It wasn't anger that rose in my chest, not revenge either, just clarity. I had spent years trying to earn love I never really had. Love that disappeared the second I stopped being useful. Love that looked more like control every year. But the car? I'd earned that. The watch? I'd earned that. The promotions, the sleepless nights, the payments, the quiet transfers so they wouldn't lose face. I earned the right to stop pretending this was normal. If they wanted a war, they were about to find out I'd already won the only battle that mattered. I wasn't confused anymore. My phone started vibrating again on the counter. Mom's name. Dad's. Again and again, the screen lit up like an alarm. I set the Rolex box down with a soft thud. Then I placed the key beside it. And this time, I didn't reach for the phone. The calls didn't stop. They came in pulses. 3 from Mom, 2 from Dad, then 1 from Aunt Tricia, whose ringtone I had set to silent years ago because she only calls when there's fresh gossip to chew on. By 8 a.m., the voicemail box was already full. I didn't listen. I made coffee instead. The house was quiet. Dave was still asleep, and for a moment, the hum of the coffee maker felt like the only sane sound in my life. Then the 10th call came in, and I finally turned my phone over. Mom again? Decline. Dad? Decline. Unknown number. Decline. Then the barrage stopped, and for a few seconds, the silence felt like a gasp before a scream. At 8:17 a.m., a notification popped up. New voicemail. Mom. Against my better judgment, I hit play. Her crying filled the speaker immediately. Loud, dramatic, the kind she perfected over decades of turning herself into a victim whenever it suited her. You humiliated us, Camille, in front of everyone. People are still talking. Your father barely slept. He's embarrassed. He's devastated. I deleted it. The next voicemail began with Dad's voice, sharp and bitter. You think you can buy respect with a watch? You'll always be the same disappointment. I don't care how much money you waste trying to prove otherwise. Delete. Another from Aunt Tricia, concerned but also clearly excited. Delete. I didn't need any of it. Around noon, someone knocked on the door. I wasn't expecting anyone, not Dave's friends, not deliveries. My stomach nodded. I opened it carefully. Grandpa stood there, leaning on his cane, his truck parked crooked in the driveway like he'd driven over here on adrenaline and stubbornness. He almost never drives anymore. That alone made my pulse jump. Grandpa? I stepped aside instantly. Come in. He didn't talk much as he walked to the kitchen. Dave got up from the couch when he heard the door and nodded respectfully. "Coffee?" Dave asked. Grandpa nodded, sat at the table with a wince, and looked down at the Rolex box, still sitting there like an accusation. He tapped the lid once with a worn fingertip. "So," he said, "you finally had enough of him." It wasn't a question. I sat across from him, Dave standing behind me like a quiet guard. "Yeah," I said softly. "I guess I did." He looked at the box again, then shook his head like he was remembering something. "You know," he said, "I remember your dad saying once, years ago, that when he made it big at that company, he'd buy himself a Rolex. He talked about it like it was a symbol, a promise he made himself." He paused, eyes narrowing. "He never bought it." I didn't respond. He wasn't finished. "He always had an excuse," Grandpa continued. "Too expensive, too irresponsible, not the right time, always something." He looked up and met my eyes. "You giving him one?" His voice hardened. That would have hit him somewhere deep, somewhere ugly. Something clicked inside me. The smirk, the cruelty, the need to tear me down in front of everyone. It wasn't about the watch. It was about what it meant. It meant I had done something he hadn't, that I had succeeded in ways he couldn't twist into a failure. Grandpa leaned back, sighing. "Your father's always been jealous of what he doesn't have," he said, "and jealous of anyone who has it, especially if that someone is you." Dave exhaled softly behind me. Grandpa reached for his cane and pushed himself to his feet. "If they call again," he said firmly, "don't answer." He walked toward the door. "If they show up," he added, "don't let them in." He paused, hand on the doorknob. "And if it gets worse, call me. I mean that." He left without waiting for me to respond. I stood there in the doorway until his truck pulled out of the driveway. The air felt heavier when he was gone, like he'd stirred something in the dust and left it hanging. 3 days passed before worse arrived. It came at 6:45 a.m. in a burst of frantic doorbell ringing. Dave was already up, brushing his teeth. I heard him pause, spit, then walk toward the front door while I tightened the knot on my robe. He opened it with the calm of a man who has learned to expect chaos at the threshold. My father stood there, sunglasses on, shoulders squared, jaw clenched, like he was about to negotiate a hostile merger. He didn't greet Dave. He didn't ask to come in. "I'll make this quick," he said. "Where's the watch?" Dave didn't move from the doorway. "Not yours anymore," Dave said. Dad scoffed. "It was a gift. You don't just take back a gift." "She can," Dave replied, "when you insult her in front of 50 people. My father's jaw worked, tightening. "You don't know what it's like dealing with her," he said. "You'll find out eventually." It was a cheap shot, meant to pry something open between me and Dave. It didn't land. Dave didn't blink, didn't shift. "You're not coming in," Dave said. "Leave." For a moment, Dad looked like he might push it. Physically, verbally, anything to regain control. But Dave didn't move. He didn't flinch. And Dad realized nothing he said was going to move this wall. So he muttered something under his breath, turned, and stomped back to his truck. I watched the whole thing from the hallway mirror, not wanting to step into the doorway and give him the satisfaction of seeing me shaken. It didn't feel satisfying, just empty. The confrontation he wanted was a script he'd rehearsed for decades. Dave refused to play the part. For a few days after that, things went eerily quiet. No calls, no voicemails, no drive-by appearances. It was the kind of silence you get before a storm breaks. The storm arrived through Dave's phone. He was sitting on the couch, scrolling, when suddenly his expression shifted, brows pulled together, lips pressed tightly. "What is it?" I asked. He hesitated, then turned the phone toward me. My stomach dropped. A message from an unknown number, screenshots attached. Screenshots of old flirtatious messages from guys I dated in college. Messages scraped from years back, before I even met Dave. Old threads, old usernames, old embarrassments dug out like fossils. Above them, a single text line. "Just thought you should see what kind of woman you married." I didn't need to guess who sent it. I handed Dave the phone back slowly. He looked up at me, not angry, but hurt in a way I felt deep in my chest. "Why would he do this?" he asked quietly. I swallowed hard. "Because if he can't control me," I said, "he'll try to destroy what I have." Dave's jaw tightened. "He thinks this will come between us," I added, "that you'll doubt me, that I'll unravel trying to explain myself." Dave waited, so I met his eyes. "What does it matter how many guys I dated?" I said softly. "There weren't many when I chose you." His shoulders loosened. A tiny smile cracked at the corner of his mouth. "That's all I needed to hear," he murmured. Relief washed through me. But it didn't erase the truth. My father had crossed into a new territory, a darker one. This wasn't humiliation anymore. It wasn't yelling at a barbecue. It was calculated sabotage, and something inside me hardened. I wasn't letting him do this alone. Not to me, not to my marriage, not to anyone in my future. That night, when Dave had gone to bed, I stepped outside onto the porch with my phone and called Grandpa. He picked up on the first ring. "Tell me everything," he said. I told him. All of it. The watch, the car key, the voicemails, the doorstep confrontation, the smear campaign. He didn't interrupt. When I finished, there was a long silence on the line. Then he said, "Camille, I've been thinking about my estate." I blinked. "What?" His voice was steady, controlled. "Maybe it's time I put my money where my mouth is," he said. "I should have protected you a long time ago. I'll handle it." When Grandpa says he'll handle something, I whispered later to Dave, he means it. But even I didn't realize just how far he meant to go. 2 days later, I woke to a voicemail from Grandpa. His voice was calm, almost cold. "I've scheduled a meeting at the house," he said. "This Saturday. You, me, and your parents." A pause. "I'm saying what needs to be said." I sat there in bed, phone warm in my hand, heart pounding. Whatever was coming next, it wasn't going to be another conversation. It was going to be a reckoning, and my father had no idea he'd finally picked a fight with someone who wasn't afraid of him. Saturday afternoon arrived with a kind of quiet dread, the kind that settles in your bones and makes everything feel too sharp, too still, like the world is holding its breath. Dave and I drove in silence toward Grandpa's house. His long gravel driveway felt narrower than I remembered, as if the trees themselves leaned in to watch what was about to happen. Dad's truck was already parked out front. Mom's SUV, too. Bright, polished, pretending to be owned by people in control. They sat there like props in a play that was about to collapse mid-scene. I felt Dave glance at me as he turned off the engine. "You ready?" he asked softly. I wasn't, but I nodded anyway. We walked toward the front porch. My pulse thudded in my neck, but my steps stayed steady. I had the strange sensation I was walking into a courtroom, but this time I wasn't the one on trial. Inside, the house was unnervingly neat. Grandpa's dining room, usually cluttered with newspapers, tools, and half-finished puzzles, had been cleared to a surgical level. Just the table, 4 chairs, a single manila folder, a stack of documents, and Mr. Carlson, Grandpa's lawyer, sitting beside him with a composed, unreadable expression. Mom sat rigidly on the couch, wearing oversized sunglasses indoors, clearly trying to signal she'd been crying, hoping sympathy would do what logic couldn't. Dad leaned back like he was waiting for a dentist appointment to be over. No greetings, no pretense, just tension. Grandpa pointed to the chairs across from him. "Sit." Dave and I sat. Grandpa adjusted himself, took a breath, and folded his hands on the table. "I've updated my estate," he said, voice steady. "You're all here to hear it once. After that, there will be no discussion." Dad shifted, suddenly alert. Mom reached for Dad's arm like she'd been expecting something comforting. It didn't come. Grandpa continued. "I'm leaving everything I have, my house, my land, my accounts, my assets, to Camille." The room froze. Mom made a sound halfway between a gasp and a choke. Dad sat up straighter, jaw clenching. "You're cutting us out?" he demanded. "Of everything?" Grandpa nodded once. "Yes." Dad scoffed. "You're joking." "Over what? Because she threw a tantrum with a watch?" Grandpa leaned forward, eyes sharp, sharper than I'd seen in years. "This isn't about a watch," he said stiffly. "It's about a lifetime of how you've treated her." Mom's lower lip trembled. "But Frank is your son," she said, pointing at him like a reminder of lineage. "And Camille is—" "The one who's acted like family," Grandpa snapped. The sunglasses hid her eyes, but her mouth pinched tight. Dad shook his head. "She manipulated you." Grandpa didn't blink. "No, I watched. For years. And I said nothing. That's on me. But I'm not leaving what I built to someone who destroys everything around him and calls it leadership." Dad stood up abruptly. "This is ridiculous. She always plays the victim. You're being played." Dave's chair scraped softly as he straightened. "She's not a victim," he said calmly. "She's exhausted." Mom's head whipped toward Dave as if she'd forgotten he existed. "You don't get to speak here," she snapped. Dave didn't even look at her. He stayed focused on Grandpa. Mr. Carlson slid the folder across the table to Grandpa, who didn't open it. "The paperwork is final," Grandpa said. "Signed, notarized, irrevocable. If either of you try to contest it, you'll waste money you don't have." Mom's hand trembled around the armrest. Dad stared at Grandpa, waiting for him to soften the way parents always expect grandparents to do. But Grandpa didn't soften. "I brought you here so you'd hear it from me," he said, not from a lawyer in a letter. That landed, a direct blow. Finally, I spoke. "You want to talk about ungrateful?" I said quietly. "Let's start with the car I paid off for you." The one you told people was a gift from me. Like I wasn't still making the payments every month without a thank you. Dad rounded on me. You're so ungrateful, he barked. We raised you. He didn't get to finish. Dave stepped in. You fed her, he said sharply, and kept the lights on. Raising someone is different. Mom gasped like she'd been slapped. Grandpa lifted a hand, signaling the conversation was over. You're done here, he told them. Leave my house. Neither moved, not at first. They stared at him, waiting, hoping for a crack. But Grandpa didn't give them one. Dad finally muttered something, half curse, half sputter, and stormed toward the door. Mom followed, wiping tears under her sunglasses, still performing even as she left. The screen door creaked open, slammed shut, and the house fell silent. Grandpa leaned back, suddenly looking older, heavier, but strangely relieved. You should have done that years ago, Dave murmured. Grandpa gave a small, tired smile. I should have, he said, but I'm doing it now. We stayed for another hour, just talking, letting the adrenaline fade. Grandpa apologized for years of silence. I told him he didn't need to. We both knew why he'd said nothing. Family denial is a hard, sticky thing. Before we left, Grandpa squeezed my hand. This isn't just punishment, he said. I want what I built to go to someone who knows what things really cost. And you do. On the drive home, Dave reached over and rested his hand on my knee. I didn't realize I'd been shaking until he touched me. You okay? He asked. I think so, I whispered. For the first time, maybe. That night, alone in the kitchen, while Dave showered, I opened my laptop. I logged into the loan portal. Found the auto payment tied to my parents' car. 10 months of just this once. 10 months of don't make a big deal about it. 10 months of being blamed for not being grateful while I was literally paying for the car they bragged about. I hovered over the Cancel Automatic Payments button, then clicked it. The confirmation popped up. Auto pay disabled. No hesitation, no apology. Just a clean break. And I felt it, something loosening inside me, something that had been wound tight for years. 3 days later, the knock came. Not a doorbell, a knock. The kind of knock that says we're not leaving until you answer. I opened the door, and there they were. My parents, both looking wrecked. Mom's eyes swollen without makeup. Dad's shoulders slouched, clothes wrinkled. No hostility, just desperation. We need to talk, Dad said hoarsely. Dave appeared behind me, silent, solid. I didn't move aside. Out here is fine, I said. Mom stepped closer, voice cracking. Honey, please, just a few minutes. We didn't come to argue. Dad swallowed hard. We're sorry, he said, for how things went, for what we said, for... He gestured vaguely toward the whole world. All of it. My breath caught, not because I believed him, but because I'd never heard him admit wrongdoing before. Then he said something I didn't expect. When you gave me that watch, he said quietly, I didn't know how to handle it. You didn't need us anymore, and that... He swallowed. That scared me. For a flicker of a moment, something almost human crossed his face. But then, Mom stepped in too quickly. We need you to talk to Grandpa, she blurted. To ask him to reconsider. You don't have to give up the estate. Just ask him to leave something to us. Ah, there it was. The real reason they came. Not remorse. Fear. You don't even have to tell him it was your idea, Mom added desperately. Just help us. I stared at them. They looked fragile, afraid, lost. But not sorry. Not truly. Dad's eyes hardened slightly when I didn't answer right away. You're still our daughter, he said, voice low. That means something. No, I said, voice steady. I'm the daughter you ignored, belittled, and used until it stopped working. Mom's chin trembled. Don't say that, please. You don't know what it's been like for us since he made that announcement. You're right, I said. I don't, and I don't need to. Dad's mask cracked into anger again. You could fix this. I shook my head. I'm not your fix. I started to close the door until Mom blurted, Ryan's coming home next week. I stopped. What? I asked. Your brother, she said. He called Grandpa. He said he wants to meet. He's going to talk to him. Of course. Ryan, the golden child, the favorite, the one who swooped in only when there was something to gain. Dad straightened a little, like a dying fire catching wind. He's not going to let you take everything. I nodded slowly. So this isn't an apology, I said. It's a warning. Dad's eyes locked onto mine. This isn't over. No, I said, voice ice cold. It's just getting started. I closed the door, locked it, walked away. Dave followed me, leaned on the wall as I slid to the floor. What are you going to do? He asked softly. I looked at him. And for the first time in years, I smiled without fear of who might break me for it. I'm going to finish what they started. I should have known Ryan would show up the moment a will was mentioned. He always did, whenever there was money, conflict, or an audience. But even knowing that, I wasn't prepared for how fast he moved. 2 days after my parents' doorstep performance, my phone buzzed with Grandpa's name. I stepped onto the porch before answering. It felt instinctive, like I needed open air for whatever was coming. "Grandpa?" I said. He didn't waste time. "Guess who showed up at my door this morning," he said, wearing a button-down shirt and enough fake humility to make a preacher blush. My stomach tightened. "Ryan," I muttered. "I didn't even have to ask why he was here," Grandpa continued. "He said he came for peace, to mediate, said he wanted to help the family heal." "Did he bring cookies?" I asked dryly. Grandpa snorted, an exhausted, humorless sound. "No cookies," he said, "but he did bring a list." I straightened. "A list of what?" "Percentages," Grandpa said. "Allocations. What he thinks is a fair split of the estate between himself, your parents, and you." I laughed out loud. I couldn't help it. "Let me guess," I said. "He framed it as being helpful, rational, objective?" "He said you're emotional," Grandpa replied, "that you need help thinking clearly, that I'm too old to recognize manipulation." The air around me turned sharp, cold. I stopped myself. "What did you tell him?" "I told him to get out of my house," Grandpa said plainly. I pressed my hand to my forehead. "They sent him." "They did," Grandpa confirmed. "They thought I'd cave if it came from their reasonable child, the golden one." I exhaled slowly. "Are you okay?" I asked. Grandpa was quiet for a moment, long enough that I thought the call had dropped. Then he said something I didn't expect. "No," he said slowly. "I'm not okay. I'm angry. At your father, at your mother, at Ryan, at myself." I sat down on the steps. "At yourself?" I echoed. "For letting this go on as long as it has," he said. "For watching them use you. For watching them drain every good thing you had. I should have stopped it years ago." "Grandpa," I whispered. He cleared his throat. "And that's why," he continued, "I've decided to cut them off completely." My breath caught. "What do you mean?" "No more safety nets," he said. "No more paying property taxes behind their backs. No more covering late fees. No more bailing them out of their own messes. And I'm calling their bank tomorrow to remove the lien guarantee I've been holding on the house." I froze. "That means they'll get a notice before the end of the week." My pulse pounded in my ears. "Are you sure?" I asked. "I've watched your father waste every chance," Grandpa said. "I've watched your mother excuse every failure. And I've watched you claw your way out of the mess they made just to be pulled back in. You earned the life you have. They didn't." There were 100 things I could have said. "Thank you. I love you. Are you sure?" That's harsh. But none of them matched the weight of the moment. So I said the only true thing I had. "I want one more thing." "What's that?" he asked. I swallowed. "I want the silence," I said. "No contact, no loopholes, no chances, no surprise family talks, no reconsidering." He didn't hesitate. "You'll have it," he said. "I'll put it in writing if I have to." And when he said that, something inside me that had been clenched for years finally loosened, like a binding had snapped. The meeting happened 2 days later, not with me present. Grandpa wanted to do it without distraction. It was him, his lawyer, my parents, and Ryan. He told me about it afterward, though from the sound of his voice, I already knew it wouldn't be a pleasant memory for him. "I sat them down," he said, "told them clearly and legally they are removed from my will. And all financial support, house, health care, insurance payments, is ending immediately." "What did they say?" I asked. "Nothing," Grandpa replied. "They sat in silence." "Even Ryan?" "Especially Ryan," Grandpa said. There was no more leverage, no more pretending, no more manipulation. They had lost the audience. They had lost the narrative. They had lost control. Grandpa ended the call with 2 words that felt like the closing of a chapter. "It's done." I thought that would be the end of their attempts. Of course, I was wrong. 3 days later, the knock came. Not a doorbell, a knock. The kind of knock that says, "We know you're inside. We're not leaving." Dave appeared from the living room, eyes narrowing. He moved behind me as I opened the door. My parents stood on the porch. No sunglasses, no posturing, just 2 exhausted, frightened humans. Mom looked smaller than I'd ever seen her, eyes puffy, hair pulled back without care. Dad's shoulders slumped like he hadn't slept properly in days. "We need to talk," he said. I didn't step back. "We can talk out here," I said. Mom took a shaky step forward. "Honey, please, just a few minutes." Her voice cracked. Not performative this time. Something dark twisted in my chest, not sympathy, recognition. They were scared, truly scared. Dad swallowed hard. "I wasn't fair to you," he said quietly. "To either of you." He glanced at Dave, and the acknowledgement was so unexpected it almost didn't register. We lost control, Mom said. We said things we shouldn't have. Did things we shouldn't have. We were wrong. I waited, because that wasn't the real reason they came. And then it slipped out. We're losing everything, Mom whispered. The house, the savings, our insurance. He's leaving it all to you. Her gaze sharpened, not loving, not tender, desperate. Talk to him, she begged. Please. Ask him to reconsider. Just leave something to us. We're not asking for everything, just enough to survive. Dad stepped in. You're still our daughter, he said. That has to mean something. There it was. Not apology, not healing. Transaction. I thought I might feel triumph, vindication, satisfaction. I didn't. I felt nothing. You ignored me, I said. You belittled me. You used me. For years. Now it's over. Mom's voice shook. You don't mean that. Dad's eyes hardened with a last flicker of anger. You can fix this. No, I said. I'm not your fix. I started to close the door. Then Mom grabbed it. Wait, Ryan's coming home next week. I paused. Ryan? He called Grandpa, she said. He wants a meeting. He's going to talk him out of this. Dad straightened a little, like the last ember of hope had reignited. He won't let you take everything, he said flatly. I nodded once. So this wasn't an apology, I said. It was a warning. Dad met my eyes. This isn't over. I smiled, cold, tired, resolved. No, I said. For once, it's just getting started. I shut the door, locked it, walked away. And somewhere inside, something shifted permanently. I wasn't fighting to win anymore. I was fighting to end it. I could tell the moment Ryan landed in town, before Grandpa confirmed it, before anyone said a word. It's a strange thing, knowing your family well enough to predict their next manipulation before they even perform it. A sixth sense built on years of survival. By the next morning, Grandpa called. He didn't sound amused. Guess who showed up at my door this morning, he said, wearing a pressed shirt and the demeanor of a man running for office. I sighed. Ryan. He said he was here for peace, Grandpa said. Said he wanted to mediate. He brought a list, didn't he? Grandpa huffed under his breath. Percentages. What he thinks is a fair division of the estate. How much you should get. How much your parents should get. And this is the part that almost made me laugh. How I should structure it so everyone feels valued. I closed my eyes. There it was. The golden child method. Sound calm, pretend to be reasonable, weaponize charm. And he said, I prompted. Too emotional to think clearly, Grandpa said. And that I'm too old to recognize manipulation. Something inside me cracked and remade itself at the same time. What did you tell him? I told him to get out of my house, Grandpa said bluntly. I smiled. Good. But Grandpa wasn't done. That's not all, he said. I didn't tell him the rest. A pause, a heavy one. Camille, Grandpa said. I have decided to cut them off completely. My breath caught. No more safety nets, he continued. No more paying their property taxes. No more covering their medical bills. No more co-signing. And first thing tomorrow morning, I'm calling the bank to remove the lien guarantee I've held on their house. I went still. That means they'll get a notice by the end of the week, he said. My heartbeat thudded. You're sure? I've watched them destroy every chance, Grandpa said. I've watched them tear at you to feel bigger. I will not fund their failure anymore, not when they've done nothing but feast on your success. And then gently, you earned your life, Camille. They didn't. Something inside me unclenched. For the first time, someone in my bloodline was on my side without condition. I want one more thing, I said quietly. What? No contact, I said. No loopholes, no back doors, no their family exceptions. He didn't hesitate. You'll have it. And with that, the entire structure of my life shifted. The second meeting happened without me. Grandpa didn't want me there. He wanted a clean cut. Parents and Ryan arrived expecting another negotiation, or maybe a dramatic reconciliation. Instead, they were told they were removed from the will permanently. All financial support was ending. All liens and guarantees were being withdrawn. Their house would no longer be protected by Grandpa's name or credit, and contesting any of it would be pointless. Grandpa said they sat in silence, not anger, not disbelief. Silence, the stunned kind that comes when someone realizes their last lifeline has snapped. Afterward, he called me and said only, "It's done." I expected them to show up at my door again, and I was right. 3 days later, knock knock. Not the doorbell. That knock again, the desperate one. I opened the door. They looked nothing like the people at the barbecue. Mom's face was pale, stripped of makeup. Dad's shoulders sagged. They looked worn down, like time had passed too quickly for them to keep up. "We're sorry," Mom said through a cracking voice. "We were wrong." About everything. Dad nodded. His voice came out low, almost hoarse. I've been cruel, he said. I know that now. I took everything you gave and gave you nothing back. For the first time in my life, my father admitted fault. And for the first time, I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no triumph, no desire to repair, just distance. You need to talk to Grandpa, Mom said. He listens to you. We won't survive this without help. There it was again. Not love, not remorse. Need. I stepped out onto the porch, closing the door behind me, but leaving it firm in my grip, not inviting them in. I begged for years, I said. For respect, for kindness, for something real. Mom's eyes filled. We were scared. No, I said. You were comfortable. Dad flinched. You didn't just fail me, I said softly. You pretended you didn't. Dad swallowed hard. We can change. You can, I agreed, but not with my help. Mom choked out, We'll lose the house, our insurance, everything. I nodded slowly. That's the cost of what you built. Dad's voice cracked. This isn't fair. Dave's voice came from behind the door, calm but iron firm. It's exactly fair. My parents looked at each other, and something in their posture shifted. They realized I wasn't budging, couldn't be manipulated, wouldn't be salvaged. I stepped back. We're done, I said. Not for now, forever. I closed the door. I watched them walk to the car, their car, the one I'd been paying off for a year. They got inside and drove away. 5 days of silence followed. No calls, no knocks, no messages. And it was unsettling, not peaceful, but honest, like standing in a room where someone had just screamed and left. On the 6th day, the phone rang. A number from a dealership. I almost didn't answer, but I did. Miss Ward, a gentle voice said, I'm calling to inform you the vehicle registered under your name was repossessed this morning. It was picked up at an address outside of town. I let the words settle. The rep asked if I wanted to settle the remainder or have the bank proceed. I'm done, I said. It has nothing to do with me anymore. When I hung up, I stared at the wall for a long time. Not sad, not relieved, just free. I opened the folder with the receipts, the months of payments, the statements, the emails asking for just one more month. I fed them into the shredder until the tray overflowed, then emptied it and fed the rest. I wasn't keeping records for a battle that was over. On Sunday, Grandpa called again. They'd shown up at his door this time. No Ryan, just my parents. Looking brittle, raw. Mom claimed she was sick. Said they needed help with medical bills. Said she was scared. Grandpa asked for paperwork. She had none. Then Dad tried something new. He said he'd started therapy. Said he wanted to break the cycle. Said he wanted to make things right. Grandpa didn't buy it. I told them, Grandpa said, that you didn't break this family. They did. And I told them I wouldn't lift a finger until they admitted that without excuses. He paused. Then he said something that settled deep into my bones. You didn't just survive what they did, Camille. You built a life anyway. That's why you're the one I chose. I didn't speak. Just listened to the wind on his porch, the soft creak of his rocking chair. That night, Dave and I sat in our own living room with the lamps low. He handed me a beer. We didn't talk. Silence wrapped around us. Not heavy, not fearful. Just quiet. For once, I wasn't waiting for the next crisis. I wasn't waiting for someone to knock or call or demand. It was over. The house they once bragged about lost its listing 2 months later. Foreclosure. I saw it by accident. Same blue shutters. Same porch swing. No feeling. Ryan disappeared from the family landscape completely. Not a text, not a rumor. Gone. And my parents? I don't know where they live now. I don't ask. I don't want updates unless they involve legal documents. A distant neighbor messaged me once on Facebook saying she saw my mom working the register at a pharmacy on the edge of town. Said she looked tired. I thanked her, closed the message. And that was that. Dave and I are planning a trip soon, somewhere quiet. Just us. No excuses, no guilt, no history dragging behind us. The Rolex is still in my drawer. I don't wear it. I don't even like watches. But I keep it because it reminds me of the day everything changed. The day I stopped trying to earn love that should never have had a price. And the day I realized I wasn't their disappointment. I was their consequence.